In the post-war era, the St James Square district was made up of dozens of Georgian townhouses and tenements, typical to this part of Edinburgh. By the 1960s, however, the elegance of these buildings was fading fast. Run-down, rodent-ridden, and roundly associated with poverty, squalor and crime, St James Square and surrounding streets were earmarked for demolition, as part of a comprehensive reimagining of the district that would centre around a huge new development, incorporating a shopping complex and several large office buildings. When the St James Centre opened in 1973, the area had been rendered unrecognisable, with only a handful of the original buildings left standing. Plainly, the John Lewis partnership were unimpressed by the Burke-Martin scheme, and commissioned Basil Spence to design their new store at the northeast corner of the development. For the authors of The Buildings of Edinburgh, Spence's design restored a sense of sweeping urbanity to the northeastern approach, with a pleasingly curved street facade of sandstone and glass. But it was never big enough to make a real difference. Between them, the Murrayfield Real Estate Company and the Ian Burke-Hugh Martin partnership had created a development that was described by one civil servant as a building designed in the 60s, built in the 70s, and totally unsuitable for the 80s. Darts and television go together like fish and chips. The zany thing is that so few retail outlets realise this, and of course, the person who suffers is usually Joe or Julie Public, in other words, the consumer. Inevitably, the long-suffering shopper is the monkey who has to jump from branch to branch of Johnny Big Store, trying to hunt down that elusive retail outlet where the complimentary television and dart accessories can be located. Thankfully, Edinburgh has been blessed, since 1925, with an innovative market leader in the darts and television retail industry. Borland's Darts and Television, established 1925, is the place to come if you're interested in television and darts, and let's face it, which of us can honestly say, hand on heart, that we're not? Keep up the good work, Borland's, and here's to another 68 years successful trading. The structure was designed in 1970 by Marshall Morrison and Associates, and is described by Gifford et al. In The Buildings of Scotland, Edinburgh, as a decent office block, with long horizontals of vertically textured concrete, its set-back building line excused by a garage forecourt. Interesting footnote. Shrub Hill House has recently been enclosed and clad in steel, to try and prevent the graffiti artists from getting in, presumably because it was deemed an eyesore. What's more of an affront to my eyes is a steel-clad building screaming out, "No entry." As the graffiti sprayed on the door following its securing says, "All we wanted was art, why do you hate culture so much?" In London, they make derelict spaces into art spaces. In Edinburgh, inspiring capital, remember, where capital is king, they rigidly protect their investment using brute force and without an ounce of creativity or thought for their neighbours who actually live there. Who owns Edinburgh? So, he's on the black. Pressure shot. And it all goes wrong big time. Fuck. He picks on this specky wee gadge at the bar, and accuses him of putting him off by looking at him. Could you believe it? The poor wee cunt hasn't even glanced in our direction. Fuck off. He was gonna chip him, I tell you. Then I thought he was gonna do me. The beggar's fucking psycho, man. But he's a mate, you know, so what can you do? What, indeed, could one do? Just stand back and watch and try not to get involved. Begbie didn't do drugs either. He just did people. That's what he got off on. His own sensory addiction. Hey, nobody move. That lassie got glassed. And no cunt leaves here till we find out what cunt did it. In the case of Stead's Place, Drum appeared to believe it was perfectly feasible to turf Leith Depot onto the street in October of this year, to find a new home. They then presumed it would be easy enough for them to move, seamlessly, into the new space in a couple of years' time, having lost 2 years' worth of revenue, and be bloody well grateful. Their plans invariably include some kind of loosely defined, cultural hub, or arts venue. This acts as a reassuring hug to the councils they are applying to, that they are somehow enlightened to the need for arts provision for the community they are parachuting into. In reality, their terms are so vague, and come with no first-hand knowledge of what running an arts venue or a music venue entails, as to be meaningless. So meaningless, in fact, that by the time the development's final plans are drawn up they have usually disappeared completely. The Leith Town Council would be well advised to push on the tramway scheme. Taking a plebiscite is absurd. The Town Council cannot abdicate its functions in this way. How is Tom, Dick, or Harry of the Kirkgate to settle definitely whether £60,000 is a fair price for the existing system? It is certainly a large sum for material, much of which will be useless in an electric system, but the whole bearings of the case have to be studied. The new Leith Central Station is formidable opposition at present, and if time is put off, the opposition will be more formidable. But given mechanical traction all the way down Leith Walk, removal of the muddle at Pilrig, and cheap fares, the railway opposition will not be very serious. The same experience will be shared by Edinburgh as other great cities. But the public are often conservative, and if they give their suffrages to the railway for long, their loyalty may not be sapped. The tramway question should have been settled months before the railway got to work. Linksview House is among the best of Scotland's post-war mass urban housing schemes, and closely follows recently emerging theoretical interest in community planning, using external access decks as a way of recreating the civic spirit of traditional tenemented streets. With Cable Wynds House, Linksview House is among the most accomplished architecturally, characterising the new brutalism in building current to the late 1950s and the 1960s. Laying bare the essential materials of a building's construction. And here, using reinforced and in situ concrete. Would a flat next to Cable Wynds House be safe? I've been looking for a one bed at the shore and have missed out on a few right down the front, but have just been to view one on Yardheads, just off Great Junction Street. The flat is nice inside, and a very good price, but it looks into the side of Cable Wynds House. I think that's what it's called. It's a huge grey curved flat block that looks like a one-star apartment building you'd see in an Eastern European holiday town from the 70s. Would the residents of the building be likely to cause me or my girlfriend a problem? For example, would we be okay walking up from the bars at the shore at night, or is the place crawling with junkies, neds, teenagers looking for bother? Same question for my car. It's on street parking. Is my car likely to survive the night? Fast forward more than 40 years. The concrete edifice of the St. James, like the handsome 18th century square that preceded it, found itself staring at the wrecking ball. With the triumphant opening of the new £1 billion St James Quarter last month, the district has once more been born anew.